They told us we were going to France to make the world safe for democracy. That's what President Wilson said, and we believed him. I was 19 years old when I enlisted in the Marines, spring of 1917. Farm boy from Iowa who'd never seen the ocean, never been further than Des Moines. Now I was going to save civilization. Boot camp at Paris Island was hell, but it was nothing compared to what waited for us across the Atlantic. We thought we were tough. We thought we were ready. The drill instructors screamed at us, broke us down, built us back up. They taught us to shoot, to march, to follow orders without thinking. What they didn't teach us was how to survive what we were walking into. We shipped out in January 1918, packed into transport ships like cattle. Most of the boys got seasick. I spent those weeks reading letters from home, from Ma and my little sister Sarah. She'd written about the Victory Garden they were planting, about the Liberty Bond drive at church. Everything back home seemed so far away, like another world entirely. When we got to France, they rushed us through training. The Allies needed fresh bodies. The French and British had been bleeding for years, and the Germans were making one last push before our numbers could tip the scales. We were assigned to positions near Belleau Wood in March. That's where I learned what war really was. The veterans. The ones who'd been there since the beginning. They looked at us with these hollow eyes. Like they were already dead, but their bodies hadn't figured it out yet. One French soldier, couldn't have been more than 25, looked 50. He tried to warn us about the gas. We didn't really understand. How could we? It was early April when it happened. We'd been in the trenches for 3 weeks, rotating between front-line duty and reserve positions. You never got used to it. The mud that sucked at your boots, the rats as big as cats, the constant crack of sniper fire. But you learned to function. You had to. That morning started quiet, too quiet. The shelling had stopped around dawn, which should have been our first warning. Usually Jerry kept pounding us at sunrise, but we were exhausted, and quiet meant maybe we could rest, maybe eat something that wasn't crawling with insects. I was sharing a cigarette with Danny Morrison from Brooklyn and James Jimmy Peterson from Minnesota. We'd become close, the three of us. Jimmy was always joking, always finding something to laugh about, even in that godforsaken hole. Danny was quiet, thoughtful, used to read poetry before the war. Strange how you remember these details. Around 10 in the morning, someone shouted. I looked up and saw it rolling toward us across no man's land. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. It looked like fog, but yellowish green, hugging the ground like something alive. It moved wrong. Fog doesn't move like that, with purpose, like it's hunting. Gas! G-A-S, G-A-S, exclamation mark. The cry went up and down the line. We scrambled for our masks. The British had given us these canvas hoods with celluloid eyepieces and a rubber tube you bit down on. We'd practiced with them, but practicing is different from doing it when your hands are shaking and your heart is trying to punch through your ribs. I got mine on. I think I got it on in time. The world turned into a small circle of foggy glass, and every breath came through the chemicals in the filter, tasting like rubber and fear. I could hear Danny next to me, breathing hard through his mask, panicked. Then I heard Jimmy scream. He couldn't find his mask. In the panic, he'd dropped it, and now he was scrabbling in the mud, trying to find it, while that yellow cloud rolled over the trench lip and sank down on top of us. It was heavier than air. That's what made it so evil. It poured down into our hole like water, and there was nowhere to go. Jimmy's screams changed. I can't describe that sound. It wasn't human anymore. He was choking, drowning in air, and I watched through my foggy eyepiece as he clawed at his throat. His face turned purple, then blue. His eyes... God, his eyes were bulging out and tears were streaming down his face, mixing with the foam coming out of his mouth. I tried to help him. I tried to share my mask, but you can't do that. It doesn't work that way. And if I took mine off, I'd die too. So I held him while he suffocated, held him while he thrashed and gurgled and drowned on his own fluids. It took 4 minutes. I counted. 4 minutes of watching my friend die in my arms while I did nothing. Danny was screaming too, but his mask was on. He was screaming Jimmy's name over and over, the sound muffled and strange through the filter. Up and down the trench, I could hear others. Some had gotten their masks on too late. Some masks didn't seal properly. Some men panicked and ripped them off, which was worse than not having one at all. The gas burned. Even with the mask, it burned my eyes, made them water until I could barely see. My skin, where it was exposed, felt like it was on fire. Later, I'd learn it was chlorine gas, that it reacted with moisture to form hydrochloric acid. At the time, all I knew was pain and terror. We couldn't leave the trench. Orders were to hold position. So we sat there in that yellow fog with the dead and dying, breathing through our masks, waiting. Time stopped meaning anything. Could have been an hour, could have been 5. The gas just hung there, thick and evil, killing anyone who dared breathe. When it finally started to clear, lifted by the wind, we took stock. Out of our company of 42 men in that section, 11 were dead. Dead from gas, from drowning in their own lungs. Another 7 were blinded, their eyes burned by the chlorine. They were screaming for their mothers, for God, for anyone to help them. Jimmy Peterson from Minnesota lay at my feet. His face was gray-blue, covered in bloody foam. His eyes were still open, still had that look of pure terror frozen in them. Danny sat in the corner of the trench, rocking back and forth, his mask still on, even though the air was clear. He wouldn't take it off, couldn't take it off. The shelling started up again an hour later. That's how they did it. Gas first to kill or panic us, then high explosive to finish the job while we were disorganized. But we held. We always held, no matter the cost. They pulled the blinded boys out that night, sent them to the rear, holding onto each other's shoulders in a line like school children. I heard later that most of them never saw again. Some killed themselves. Can't say I blame them. Danny never spoke again. Not one word. He did his duty, followed orders, went over the top when they told him to. But something had broken inside him when Jimmy died. His eyes had that same hollow look as the veterans who'd tried to warn us. He lasted another 2 months before a sniper got him at Belleau Wood. Part of me thinks he wanted it to happen. We got better at the gas. They improved our masks, taught us better procedures. We learned the signs, the smell like bleach or pineapple, the way birds would suddenly go quiet, the color of the clouds. We learned to keep our masks close, to drill putting them on until we could do it in our sleep. But you never got used to it. Never. Because gas wasn't like bullets or shells. Those could kill you, sure, but quick, clean. Gas was different. Gas was torture. It lingered in shell craters, in low spots, waiting for someone to stumble into it. It crept and crawled and found you. The Germans used different kinds as the months went on. Phosgene, which was worse than chlorine. Mustard gas, which burned your skin into blisters, filled your lungs with fluid, made you cough until you broke your own ribs. We used gas, too, fired it back at them. I remember thinking how strange it was, how we'd all agreed to do this to each other. What kind of world had we built? I wrote to Ma once about the gas, tried to explain what it was like, but I couldn't find the words that wouldn't terrify her, so I said nothing. Just told her I was fine, that the food was good, that I missed home. All lies. Kind lies, maybe, but lies nonetheless. My breaking point came in June at Belleau Wood. We'd been fighting for days, taking that forest tree by tree, body by body. The Germans were dug in deep, and they weren't giving up easy. We'd attack, they'd counterattack, back and forth like some kind of horrible dance. It was during one of those counterattacks that they used gas again. This time it was mustard gas, released from shells that burst in the trees above us. I got my mask on, but not before I breathed some of it in. Not much. Just a little. But that was enough. My throat started to burn, then my lungs. I could feel the fluid building up, making each breath harder than the last. The medics pulled me back to an aid station, told me I'd be fine, that I'd gotten a light dose. Light dose. Like there's a good amount of poison to breathe. I spent 3 days in that aid station, coughing up pieces of my lungs, watching other Marines die because they'd breathed more than I had. There was a kid from Texas, couldn't have been 18. His lungs were so burned he couldn't even scream anymore. Just made this wet, rattling sound until he finally drowned. Took him 12 hours to die. That's when something snapped in me. I realized I was never going home. Not really. Even if my body made it back to Iowa, even if I walked off the ship and hugged Ma and Sarah, I'd never be that farm boy again. That boy was dead, killed somewhere in a trench in France by yellow-green clouds and the screams of dying friends. They sent me back to my unit after a week. I could breathe again, mostly. But something was different. I went through the motions, followed orders, fired my rifle, threw grenades. But I felt nothing. The fear was gone. The hope was gone. Everything was gone except this hollow numbness and the certain knowledge that I was already dead, just waiting for my body to catch up. The war ended in November. We won, they told us. Democracy was safe. The world was changed forever. We boarded ships and sailed home to parades and pretty girls throwing flowers. Everyone wanted to shake our hands, buy us drinks, hear our stories. But how do you tell them? How do you explain what it's like to watch your best friend suffocate in your arms? How do you make someone understand the smell of chlorine gas mixing with blood and mud? How do you describe the sound of 40 men screaming in a gas cloud, all dying together? You don't. You can't. So you smile and say thank you and drink until you can't remember, at least for a little while. I made it back to the farm. Ma cried when she saw me, said I looked so thin, so tired. Sarah had grown up while I was gone, almost didn't recognize her. They asked me about France, about the war, and I told them it was fine, that we did our duty, that I was glad to be home. At night, though, I still wake up choking. I can feel the gas in my lungs burning, drowning me from the inside. I see Jimmy's face purple and bulging, his hands clawing at nothing. I hear Danny's muffled screams through his mask. Sometimes I wake up and I've put my pillow over my face, holding it there, trying to suffocate myself. I don't know why I do that. The lungs never fully healed. The doctors say the gas scarred them, that I'll have trouble breathing for the rest of my life. On humid days, it gets worse. I cough until I see spots, taste blood in my mouth. It's like the gas is still there, still killing me slowly, finishing what it started in 1918. I tried to go back to farming, but I can't do the work anymore. Can't handle the physical labor with my ruined lungs. Can't stand being in enclosed spaces like the barn. Makes me panic, makes me reach for a gas mask that isn't there anymore. The smell of fertilizer sometimes triggers something, sends me back to that trench, and I lose hours just standing there, frozen. People ask me if it was worth it, if saving democracy was worth the cost. I don't know how to answer that. Democracy doesn't keep me warm at night. Democracy doesn't stop the nightmares. Democracy didn't save Jimmy Peterson or Danny Morrison or the millions of other boys who died choking in trenches or bleeding in mud. What I do know is this. They lied to us. Not about the Kaiser or the Huns or any of that. They lied about what war was. They made it sound like glory and honor and adventure. They put up posters of brave soldiers and waving flags. They didn't show us the gas. They didn't show us our friends drowning on dry land. They didn't show us what we'd become. I survived the gas attack in 1918. My body survived anyway. But that farm boy from Iowa who enlisted to save the world, He died in a trench in France, suffocated by a yellow-green cloud and the weight of what he'd seen. What came home was just a shell, a ghost wearing his face, waiting for the day when his lungs finally give out and he can stop pretending to be alive. They gave me a medal. It's in a drawer somewhere. I don't look at it. Because every time I do, all I see is Jimmy's face, and all I hear is the gas alarm, and all I feel is that rubber mouthpiece between my teeth and the certain knowledge that I'm drowning, always drowning, and no mask in the world can save me now. We never came back from that war. Not really. We're still there, in those trenches, breathing poison, watching our friends die. The only difference is now we do it alone, in quiet rooms, while the world moves on and forgets what it asked us to become. That's the truth about gas, about war. It doesn't just kill you. It hollows you out first, takes everything that made you human, and leaves you walking around as a monument to your own death. And then it has the nerve to call you a hero,